In this video, I will provide some details about setting up your question library. The question library should reflect the structure that you typically have for your exams. An exam can be structured in different ways. You can have questions for each learning objective with sub-questions or questions for a specific Bloom level, or even a very specific type of question, like asking information about a historical figure. They can also be arranged by subtopic and topics or specific questions. The structure of your exam should be reflected in the way you set up your question library in Brightspace. For an example, I've used my course Airframe Mechanics. Here I have 5 learning objectives, and typically we have a question for each learning objective. Now, within those learning objectives, I have subtopics. The first learning objective has a question on linear motion in one dimension and circular motion in one dimension. And the other learning objectives similarly have subtopics. When I create my question library, I will have to have separate subsections for each of these subtopics in this structure. For the first learning objective, I have subsections for linear motion and circular motion, but I always want to have a certain question appear on the exam, such as a question about an acceleration diagram. To ensure that there is a question on this topic in the exam, I will have to create a subsection, and when I create the quiz, I will ask Brightspace to take one question out of the pool of acceleration diagram questions I have, randomly. If I were to pool them in one big pool, I would run the risk of having multiple acceleration diagram questions or none at all. So if you want to ensure that there is one question of a certain topic, make sure you have a subsection specifically for that question in Brightspace. Now, if we go to Brightspace, we can start here at the course. I will choose my course Airframe Mechanics, go to Activities and to Quizzes. I'll have 3 options: manage my quizzes. I have no quizzes in this course yet. My question library and statistics. I also have no statistics to report. We go to question library. This is where you'll store all the questions for this course. Now I want to recreate the structure, and I start by choosing a section. I can also immediately select a question, but I first want to create the structure of my question library. Now the section here, I'll have learning objective 1. I'll hide the title from the students because it's not important. I also shuffle the questions in this section. I can have a section text, which I can either display or hide from the students. And I'll hit save. I can do this for all my learning objectives. I will do this for 2, but you get the idea for the rest. Now, for the first learning objectives, I want to create subsections. So I'm in my question library in the section of my first learning objective, and there I can create another subsection. I'll call this linear motion in one dimension. I will hide this from the students. The text, the title of the subsection, I do not want the students to see. If in the quiz I want to have different sections, I can name them later. I will also shuffle the questions in this subsection. I will want another one for the second topic, which would be circular motion in one dimension. I use the same options, hit save. But if I now want a specific question regarding acceleration diagrams, I will have to create a separate section for that. On section title acceleration diagrams, I will shuffle the question, and having this in my structure means that later in my quiz I can select one question from the pool of acceleration diagram questions, and I will be ensured to have one question on this topic in the exam. Here you see several properties. Now, those properties aren't for sections, but they're only for questions. I don't have any questions on display here. They will all be in these folders and subfolders, but we can select a question type. If we look at different questions, we'll have true, false, multiple choice, etc. I will do videos on the most commonly used of these questions and show you what the possibilities are. You can assign a number of points per question. You can assign a difficulty level, and you can assign the property for it to be a mandatory part. And remember, quizzes in Brightspace were primarily designed for formative testing, but we will now be using them for summative testing, which means that, well, we have some options that don't necessarily make sense for this particular application. So, but that will become apparent when we talk about creating the quizzes. Now, if we go back to our question library, here you see the main sections. Typically, you would add the other learning objectives and add the subsections that are relevant for this particular exam. So in the next video, I will show you how to create the questions, and later we will create the quiz from those questions.